Leukemia. Listen to this definition. Systemic cancer of the leukocytes. Excessive numbers of immature or dysfunctional leukocytes are made and released into the blood while at the sacrifice of other blood cells. Leukemia, systemic cancer of the leukocytes, the white blood cells. Excessive numbers of immature or dysfunctional leukocytes are made and released into the blood while at the sacrifice of other blood cells. And although that is a really great definition, thank you, I know that when you read it, it reads a lot like stereo instructions and you still don't really understand what that means. Right? Okay. So let me help you understand what that means. The body starts to realize it's running low on a type of white blood cell. We'll say perhaps neutrophils. And the body will say, all right, I want to make a phone call to the bone marrow and let them know that we need more neutrophils. So the body picks up the phone, calls down to the bone marrow, and says, hey, I'm going to need like 500 more neutrophils by, say, 2 o'clock. Can you do that? Bone marrow says, yeah, I think we can do that. 500 by 2, no problem. So the bone marrow guy goes over to the filing cabinet where all the directions are kept. The directions, right? DNA, stuff like that. Goes over to the filing cabinet, gets the directions out on how to make neutrophils. Pulls them out and goes right over into the factory, goes right up to the foreman and says, I have a work order for you. We need 500 neutrophils, and we need them by 2 o'clock. Here's the work order, here's the directions on how to make neutrophils. Foreman says, all right, we'll start the production line over there, we'll get those running, we'll get them out. 2 o'clock comes around, the body starts looking around, going, okay, where are those neutrophils I ordered? They're supposed to be here by 2 o'clock. The body is, of course, looking for 500 of these guys, right? 2 o'clock comes around, the bone marrow releases 500 of these. Now, this doesn't look like this, and it certainly can't do the job that this can do. So 500 of these are now released in the blood. 2:30, body's looking around, saying, where are those 500 neutrophils? I don't know what this is, but I'm looking for 500 of these. 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock. Says, all right, this is ridiculous. Even Domino's will deliver in 30 minutes. Picks up the phone, calls down to the bone marrow. Says, hey man, I kind of need those neutrophils. Remember the 500 neutrophils? Guys down there scratch his head going, man, I thought we did that. But all right, we'll get that done for you. Goes over to the filing cabinet, pulls out the directions on how to make neutrophils. Goes into the plant, goes up to the foreman and says, hey, you know, the body said they needed 500 neutrophils. Foreman's like, yeah, I thought we did that. But all right, I'll take that. We got the work order, got the directions how to make them. So we'll get those out to the body. A couple hours goes by. The factory, the bone marrow, releases 500 of these. They're wrong. They can't do this. They don't look like this. A couple hours, the body's like, now this is getting ridiculous. I need them by 2 o'clock. It's going on like 5:30, 6 o'clock now. Calls down to the bone marrow, says, hey man, we really need those neutrophils. Remember those 500 neutrophils? Guys down there go, that's right, I thought we did that. But all right, I'll go over to the filing cabinet, get out the direction on how to make neutrophils. Get the work order, goes over to the foreman and says, look, the body's getting angry. He said he needed these 500 neutrophils. Foreman said, man, I thought we did that. But here's what we'll do. We'll get that production line over there making the neutrophils we did. Then what we'll do, I'll get these guys over here who are making the eosinophils. We'll have them stop making eosinophils. We'll get them started on neutrophil production also. It'll double the production. We'll get them out twice as fast. Sounds great. Hour goes by. Body releases, the bone marrow releases 500 of these. Oh, and now we're getting low on eosinophils as well. Body calls back down, the bone marrow says, seriously, man, we need those 500. All All right, goes over to the filing cabinet, gets out the directions, goes into the foreman with the work order, says, the body really ticked off. Foreman says, all right, here's what we'll do. We'll get the neutrophils on that production line. We'll keep these guys who are making eosinophils, we'll keep them stop making eosinophils, we'll keep them making neutrophils, and these guys over here who are making lymphocytes, we'll have them stop making the lymphocytes, and now we'll get them making neutrophils also. We'll get these out lickety-split. 45 minutes goes by, bone marrow releases 500 of these. These don't do what this is supposed to do. These don't look right. So now when we take a sample of this person's blood, anywhere in their blood, right? Anywhere in their body, we suck out some of their blood, we look at it on a microscope, we see a bunch of red blood cells, and we don't see one of these in the background. We see dozens of these that are wrong. So this guy is not around to do his job, which means this person's going to get a lot of illnesses caused by what? What's neutrophil specific for? Bacteria. Plus, now this guy's also running low on eosinophils, right? Because we stopped that production line a while ago. So he's also going to be getting parasitic infections. Because remember, eosinophils are most specific for parasites and allergens. Is that right this time? Also, now we're starting to run low on lymphocytes, because didn't we slow production down on that one? Now you see why we keep these people in a bubble. Now you see why we keep these people in an environment that's got to be as clean as possible, where we're filtering out the air, because they can't be exposed to any kind of pathogens, because they're going to get sick very, very quickly. That's why it's a cancer of the white blood cells. Now, here's the thing. Here you go. This is going to blow your mind, if that part hasn't already. If we wanted to fix this, where's the problem? It's in the directions. So here's how we fix this. We get a can of gasoline, we pour it over the filing cabinets, and we light a match. Whoosh. Now, isn't that going to make a big mess? But it's going to wipe out all the directions, right? The lymphocytes were fine, the eosinophils were fine, the basophils were fine, the monocytes were fine. But it's going to wipe out all the directions, and it's going to kind of make a mess in that whole area anyway. But now we're going to end up with big empty filing cabinets. All the ashes are going to be gone, it's just going to be big empty shelves. So what I got to do now is I got to get directions from somebody else that I know are right, take them out of that person, and put them in this filing cabinet. That's what we call a bone marrow transplant. Now you'll notice how messy that is, because we can't just go in and say, we're just going to take out this file because it's the only one that's wrong, and replace it with a new one. We got to light a match. We got to throw gasoline on and light a match. Big, ugly mess. But unfortunately, that's the technology we have right now. So another 50, 100 years maybe, 200 years, maybe then we can reach in and pull out that one bad file and get rid of it. And it won't be as messy. But right now, that's all we can do. Does that make a little bit of sense? Do you kind of understand leukemia a little bit now? A little bit? Do you understand why I say it's a systemic problem? Systemic meaning all throughout the body, all throughout the system. Because if I take blood from here, 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 I'm going to see the same picture, right? But it's the same blood. It's systemic. Excessive numbers of immature, dysfunctional, wrong white blood cells are made, released into the blood, while at the sacrifice of other blood cells. In other words, we sacrifice making these other ones to try to keep up production of what's wrong. Make a little bit of sense? Now, makes a little sense? Okay. Then I have some examples here. AML, CML, ALL, and CLL. AML is acute myelogenous leukemia. This is the one we see in patients who are usually older than 30. Too many myeloblasts or myelocytes. Patients with Down syndrome have an increased risk of getting acute myelogenous leukemia. Chronic myelogenous leukemia, CML, has a special chromosome T922, a transferred 922 chromosome. We call this the Philadelphia chromosome. Because of cheesesteaks. No, it has nothing to do with cheesesteaks. Presumably it was discovered in Philadelphia. But what happens is part of chromosome number 9 breaks off and is replaced with part of chromosome number 22. Imagine getting a book with directions and another book with directions and tearing part of the page out of this one and part of the page out of this one and swapping the directions. You think things are going to turn out right? There's going to be some problems. ALL is acute lymphoblastic leukemia. This is the one we see in the young kids, 3 to 5 years old. And CLL, chronic lymphocytic leukemia. This is the one everybody hates because it starts out as a small lymphocytic lymphoma. And then it becomes a leukemia when the numbers of white blood cells, immature or raw white blood cells in the blood, get to a certain number. Then we say, oh, now it's a leukemia. So you see, the problem with these, what people hate about this, some lymphomas, well, some leukemias, I should say, some leukemias can look like lymphomas, and some lymphomas can become leukemias. Confusing stuff, right?